welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be reviewing, like you and I are both doing it, I'm going to be reviewing and just having an overall discussion about the second and third book in the Throne of Glass series. If you have not seen my thoughts on the first book, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, I will leave it somewhere in the eye or in the description below. Check that out if you want to. I'm also dressed up, not just for this video, but I am partaking in a month-long like book-centered photo challenge on Instagram. I'm not particularly great at photography, so this is extremely challenging for me, but it's also very new and different than what I usually do, which is just take a selfie or a photo of my dog. So if you want to check that out, it is Miss Claire Bear with 3 S's. And if you like this kind of video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. That lets me know to make stuff like it in the future. And to subscribe so you don't miss out on any videos. And let's get started. So just like with Throne of Glass, I listened to these on audiobook. And in case you already don't know, I have read Sarah J. Maas's other series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I absolutely love. So I knew A Throne of Glass was her first series and that there's 7 books and they've been out for a little bit. And Throne of Glass was kind of silly, kind of ridiculous, but for me, really, really fun. The second book, I don't think I like that much, honestly, which is kind of the reason why I'm doing these reviews together, because I just don't have a lot to say about it. By the time I finished it, all I could think was, wow, this book and the first book should have just been one book. There really was no reason to separate them. There just wasn't enough going on. That's not to say there weren't high points. There are definitely things about it that I liked more than the first book, but there are also things about it that I really, really, really didn't like. So to talk about the things that I did like, I liked what was going on with Dorian and him finding out that he had like crazy ice magic. He was basically Elsa. I think that was fun. I liked Selina and Kale at first. I think Sarah J. Maas is at her best when she writes about crazy monsters and witches and mystical otherworldly things. And so like when Selena had that fight with Baba Yellowlegs inside that really creepy mobile home or whatever, that and all the mirrors, so cool, such great imagery, really creepy but fun, had like a fairy tale, a violent fairy tale feel to it. I also loved when Selena was going down into the mysterious labyrinth underneath the castle. That's actually one of my favorite story tropes or ideas ever. Underground secret tunnels.
Yeah, I forget the next couple lines, but then it goes secret tunnel, secret tunnel,
and then finding monsters or some sort of secrets within them. I love that kind of stuff, so I was like all about that. And then there was going into that like alternate world, which this book, I'm like, what is this? There's nothing like that in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. So this is like definitely wild, having to deal with other dimensions and different worlds. And then finding out that Selena is part Fae. And it's a weird reveal. I enjoyed it because I'm like, well, that's interesting. But there's a lot of reveals in the second book that were questionable. I also really liked the addition of Mort, the magic, like, sarcastic doorknob. He was fun, and that little, it's those little, like the Baba Yellowlegs and Mort and those little extra fairy tale elements that really, really appeal and speak to me. What I didn't like, though, was everything that had to do with Nehemia. It's not even that I do or don't like Nehemia. I just found her storyline to be annoying at best. I think part of it is that she's one of those characters that doesn't have any flaws, and no one thinks she has flaws, and that's just not very interesting to me. Two, I think it would have been so much better and so much more impactful if Selena and Nehemia were actually childhood friends and then brought back together, but they had to pretend that they weren't friends or that they didn't know each other because obviously for everyone's safety, and Nehemia like already knows about Selena, and then her death would have been even that more impactful. But one of the things I kept thinking was like, girl, you don't know Nehemia that well, and you haven't known her for that long. Not to say you can't be devastated by someone's death, even if you haven't known them for a super long time. But it definitely felt a little bit lacking and lackluster, which so much of Selena's growth, both in this book and the third book, is because of Nehemia's death. And I never quite bought it. And part of it is because Nehemia's death was so ridiculous. They go over it like twice in this book and then again in the third book, because I think someone understood like, hey, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. So she tries to go, or Sarah J. Maas, the author, tries to go over it like step by step, like Archer Finn, who doesn't like Nehemia, and so he sent an assassin but framed it to be someone else to go and kill Nehemia. But Nehemia actually was the one pulling these strings the entire time and not even staged her own death, like actively wanted to die to make Selena act in a certain way. It was so convoluted and ridiculous, and honestly kind of unnecessary, and it kind of added to like one of the more annoying elements about this series is that Selena is just so ridiculously beloved by everybody. Like, I get it because she's like this lost princess and she has like this special fire ability, and I do actually like her. She's kind of a Mary Sue, but she obviously has a lot of flaws and she has a lot of emotional turmoil, and I find her to be a pretty interesting character. She's kind of funny and witty and sarcastic, so all of that stuff I like, but it's just the fact that everybody is so obsessed with her too. Like, Nehemia goes and like gets herself killed basically for Selena, to make Selena act in a certain way or something, and then Chaol is obsessed with her, and Dorian's obsessed with her, and then Rowan in the next book is obsessed with her, and it's like, I get it, she's important, but like, let's all chill out for a second, especially Nehemia. I'm like, I feel like there are other things you could have done to achieve a very similar result. Like, did you have to get yourself brutally assassinated? Was that really the only way to make Selena act in the way you wanted her to? I mean, she was keeping a lot of information from Selena, and I feel like maybe if she was more open and honest, like, they could have just talked it out. I know Selena was being stubborn, but I just couldn't buy this assassination to be completely necessary. Then we have to spend so much time with Selena grieving over Nehemia. It's not fun to read about, it's not interesting to read about, and like I said, it didn't have that emotional devastation to me, the reader, because I never cared about Nehemia that much, and I didn't quite grasp the circumstances in which she died. I just knew, like, this works for plot reasons, I guess, but I never felt there was no emotion in it for me. And honestly, I think Sarah J. Maas is pretty good with endings. This ending, however, felt pretty lackluster. Like, it was the reveal that Selena is this hidden princess. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I can't necessarily say it, like, got me super hyped for the next book by any means. Oh, okay, another thing, going back to Nehemia's death, then it also became this whole thing about her being turned against Chaol, which I just couldn't understand, and she acted like she was about to kill him, and she said this line about, like, you will always be my enemy, which I didn't believe for a second, because I was also like, poor Chaol, he didn't really do anything, which I guess is part of the problem, like, oh, you knew someone was after Nehemia and you didn't tell me, but it was also like, man, you don't tell him a lot of things. You didn't tell him that you were a lost princess, and you didn't tell him that you were part fae. So, I mean, I think he's allowed to keep some secrets from you, especially when it comes to his job and knowing that you are what you are and, like, being a little anxious about that. Jesus! I just felt like that whole suddenly turning very anti-Chaol was so unnecessary and weird. And that also did not feel natural. Yeah, the more I talk about it, I really, 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 the entire kind of middle of the book, I did not like almost at all. So, over that, let's move on to Heir of Fire, because that ruled. It's not quite as good as A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the other trilogy she wrote, which is blessed, but it was so much fun. So there are 4 main storylines that are weaved throughout the book and different perspectives, and this is the kind of thing I love. We're moving around, we're traveling, we're meeting new characters, we're getting in different situations where it just suddenly felt like this series really picked up the pace. Like before it was just kind of barely chugging along, and now we're like, whoa, we're zooming, we're flying. So I'm gonna go in order from my least favorite to favorite storylines. Least favorite, starting with her cousin, Adrian. Pretty sure it's Adrian, and Chaol. So although this is my least favorite storyline, I did not dislike this storyline. It's just compared to the rest, I don't think it was as fun. I really liked her cousin, Adrian. I thought he was really interesting, especially at first, before it is very blatantly revealed that he is die-hard, obsessed with his cousin, obsessed with Elena coming back, against the king, for the rebels. They reveal that so early on with his POV chapters. And I think this is something where, like, he just shouldn't have had any. He's an interesting character. He is much more vibrant than Chaol, who they kind of alternated POVs, although they spent like pretty much all of this book together. I think it would have been much more engaging for the reader if we were in Chaol's position, where we're kind of teaming up with this guy, but we don't know what his intentions are. But because he has that his first POV chapter, he blatantly explains, like, yep, I'm a good guy. I love my cousin. I want her to be back on the throne. I would do anything for her. I'd die for her. And it's like, oh, okay, mystery gone, momentum lost. They still had some fun scenes together. I really like when they are being chased down by guards, and so they have to go hide in this, like, opium whorehouse. Yeah, I think it would have been way cooler if we, like with Chaol, didn't know, like, can we trust this guy? Is what he's saying true? What if this is like a mass, like, manipulation? And until the very end of the book is where he reveals his true intentions. And I think that would have just been like an extra shocking reveal. So my next favorite storyline is Sasha and Dorian. I like Sasha so much, and we'll get into it. In the audiobook, she gave her voice kind of a lulling, like an Irish flair to it, so it was just really calming to listen to. I always liked when Sasha came on for that alone. But I liked their chapters and their storylines and their exchanges were pretty short and sweet, but it was just nice, because so much of this book is so high intensity, very dramatic, big emotions, and obviously there's some of that here too, but it was sweet. You were watching two people from different worlds fall in love. Obviously his magic comes back into play because she's trying to help him suppress his magic. It was nice, it was sweet, and then the ending made it horrible. But we'll get there, we'll get to endings. My next favorite storyline is Selina and Rowan. So, the second Selena got on that boat in the last book, I was just like, oh, thank God, get us out of here. I'm so tired of being in this castle. We've been in this stupid glass castle for so long, in the same gosh darn place. I love when characters are moving around and doing things and traveling and meeting new people, and Selena finally does that, and it's awesome. Sarah J. Maas also has like a weird obsession with making people in power test other people through like elaborate games and competitions. And so Selena's evil aunt is like, ooh, I will not give you answers until you prove your power or whatever, and I'm gonna have you with the trainer. And it's convoluted, but it's obviously just a device to get Selena and Rowan to spend a lot of time together and train together. And I knew of Rowan's existence to some capacity because I do follow a lot of Sarah J. Maas book related like fandom accounts on Instagram. Although I am very careful with spoilers, so I've just seen this character design before, which I really, really like. I love his face tattoo stuff. I'm a big fan of characters with tattoos, so I thought that was awesome. I wasn't sure what to expect from him, and it was definitely a very interesting progression with their relationship. It feels like it's going to be romantic, but I'm not sure because he's been mated before and his mate died. And I think mates are set up the same way they are in A Court of Thorns and Roses series, where it's like beyond the love of your life, it's like your other half, it's your other soul. So I'm like, I don't know how these two can fall in love if he's already mated, even though that's kind of what it feels like. But even if it doesn't end up romantic, I think they did a really good job having the like hate to love relationship. It was obviously kind of intense at first, but I liked Rowan being mean to her because Selena was annoying me. And I get it. She was lost. She was depressed. She was just going on and on and on about Nehemia and Sam, and I get it, but it was so much to listen to, and so Rowan kind of like whipping her into shape was actually really enjoyable. And I also liked meeting all the other demi-fae. They were really fun. They had such vibrant personalities, and I liked her working in the kitchen and them having story times. That's also a trope I really like. Busy kitchens that kind of have, and the staff end up having a family vibe to them, and they totally had that. I think something that was funny when it came to Rowan is that we were told over and over and over again how intense he is, how strategic he is, how much of an amazing fighter and instructor he is, how cool he is. And yet, when it came to training Selena, he came off as pretty incompetent because he got her into really bad situations accidentally multiple times. Literally from her very first training session till towards the end, he just kept getting her into these really bad situations and like, oh, whoops, I didn't mean for that to happen. So I was like, okay. I also obviously really liked that there was that added mystery in there with finding those really disturbing corpses. They had multiple instances of like running into these really scary monsters. So like all of that wrapped together made it a very, very, very enjoyable plotline. However, my favorite plotline in Heir of Fire is Manon Blackbeak. Oh my god. This is what turned this series to like, okay, we're in like epic territory now. I absolutely loved everything going on with the witches. They're so cool. And again, like the king is making them go through this like really crazy competitions with their, what are they called? Wyverns. And it's like, is that necessary? Is that the most practical way to spend everyone's time and resources? I don't care, because this one was really fun. I love the witches. I love that they have rivaling clans. I love that Manon, gosh, Sarah J. Maas did such a good job of pointing out how she has no heart. She has no sympathy. She is incapable of compassion. Bam, bam, bam. But then she has this like pet relationship with her beta wyvern, like the one that's all beaten up, and she has to work really hard just to get it to fly. It's smaller than the rest of the wyverns. She tries to justify her feelings for this thing. You clearly care about it, but you're refusing to accept the fact that you have loving feelings for your pet, and it's just I love it. I love pet stories like that. And it's weird because this is like a giant demonic evil creature, basically. But it still has that same type of relationship. And it is so charming and so wonderful. And Manon is so cool. Everything about the witches are so cool. I love that they have iron teeth. I love that they have iron claws. I love that she had a How to Train Your Dragon vibe to it, especially when she literally had to put his wings together. That scene where she goes and meets the giant spiders and get that silk from them was incredible and so creepy. One of the creepiest parts of this entire book. And so much fun, and you know that's gonna come back to haunt her, and I'm like, shout outs, I can't wait. That is something I'm so looking forward in the next few books, because now Manon is working for the King of Otterland. You get this sense that, I mean, Manon's a POV chapter. I don't know if she'll necessarily become a good guy, but I think she's a lot more morally complicated than she even gives herself credit for. And I'm so excited to see her interact with other characters. It's gonna be so great. Okay, so let's talk about endings. Because we have so many storylines, they all have different endings. Selena's was really, really weird. So she has that whole thing where she's kind of sucked into, the Vogue, the princes of darkness that feed off of horrible memories, and Selena has nothing but horrible memories that we all get to relive together. But it was interesting because you get kind of a slow-mo takedown of what happened to her when her parents died. How did she end up in the river? How did she basically end up at the Assassin's Keep as a little girl? So that was interesting. And then she had that like weird psychological talk with herself and her past loved ones where they're like, get up. Basically pep talks like, you can do it. You are Elena. You like need to not run away from that anymore. And I will say, how much I like this scene will depend on future books, because if she does actually move on from all of that tragedy and sadness, you know, obviously it's still going to be there a little bit, but I felt like we spent the last 3 books of her being like, so many horrible things have happened to me and I'm constantly running at them or fighting with myself about them. So if this is a scene where she truly becomes at peace with herself and her past and what she needs to do for her people and her own sanity and her future, and this is like the clear cut-off point where she is just a much better person, actually takes on the responsibility that she was running away from, then I really like it. But if the next 4 books are just more of her like internally pouting and being depressed and falling apart over and over and over again, then like I'm not looking forward to that. So time will tell. And then I had the weird thing where she had to go like perform her abilities in front of her aunt to get some information, which it turned out she didn't really have any new information when it came to the word keys. I don't know, that whole exchange, I just kept listening to it and I was like, what is happening? Well, one, why didn't you just end your aunt's life right then and there? Because it sounds like she sucks and is a bad guy and is somebody that's just gonna come back to make your life more difficult. Unless there was something I was missing, maybe her aunt had like a magical spell around her that kept her safe from Selena's flames, but I'm like, I feel like you could kill her right now, especially when she breaks that blood oath with Rowan. I'm like, why doesn't Rowan kill her right now? Y'all are really holding back from this person who is not a good person. It's just the whole like letting the blood oath with Rowan and the fact that that was so easily undone for this ring that came out of nowhere. That whole thing also felt extremely, extremely convoluted. Also was not a big fan of hearing about Rowan getting whipped in front of Selena. It's just a lot. That whole exchange is pretty weird. I have a feeling like we're gonna see more of this evil aunt in the future. But I am excited for Selena to go and deal with her assassin's keeper, mentor, tormentor guy. Super looking forward to that, especially now that she is like taking on the mantle of Elena. To me, the like real ending. This is a Sarah J. Maas ending, because we have the Kale and Adrian plotline, and then we have the Dorian and Sasha plotline coming together in the most anxiety-inducing way possible, and it was horrible. And that's the kind of thing I love. It's just so tense because you don't know what the King of Otterland knows, and so it's just all these characters in one room and just waiting for something to happen because you know that something's gonna break. And it does. And it's Sasha's neck. I love the reveal that Sasha was actually sending out information and actually being a part of the rebels. It's one of those things where I think they left enough hints for that to actually be the case. But I also had no idea until they mentioned the whole like finding the letter in the wastebasket and you know about her background, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. But Sarah J. Maas does such a good job of setting up this character as being really meek and wanting to be in the shadows. And then there was that little bit of like, wait, did she ever even love Dorian, or was she just using him? And then she says right at the end that like, I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, and I did. And I was just like, oh, and then she just gets her head off. And I gasped out loud. I was making dinner and I was just like, oh my God. I just wasn't ready for it because Adrian got taken to the dungeon. So I was just like, okay, well, this girl's just gonna end up in the dungeon too. Nope, she's dead. And I was like, oh my God, but I liked her. Her death was so much more impactful to me than Nehemia's ever came close to being, which I think is kind of wild how that works. And because Dorian had been taking all of this medicine to suppress his magic, he wasn't able to like really get revenge against his father, and now it sounds like he's gonna be under his father's evil dark magic spell, and his father now knows he has magic, and Kale has to run away, and Adrian is going to be used as bait for Elena, and it's like, okay, things are happening and I'm excited about it. I think this third book is really great. I hope it just keeps getting better from here because now I'm invested. Now I am super into this series. I will say, sometimes I wish I did have the physical copies because there's so much geography, there's so many different families, even just the different like family lines, gods and goddesses that are thrown out there. It's just like sometimes I can't keep it all straight and I can't figure out, wait, who's who again? There's so many names out there. But I'd much rather be in a world that has perhaps a little too much going on than a fantasy world that doesn't have enough. It's like, listen, it can be confusing at times, but man, does it feel lived in. I am so excited to listen to the next book. I am definitely going to finish this series, and I will continue to post my thoughts and reviews on them on this channel. If you like Sarah J. Maas, Throne of Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses, please subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of my book-related videos in the future. Follow me on Instagram to see some very amateur photos. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.